What if I told you that Texas declared independence once before 1836, led not by Sam Houston or Stephen F. Austin, but by a restless American adventurer and his wife, who would later be called the Mother of Texas? This is the story of James Long, his bold expedition into Spanish Texas, and the incredible survival of Jane Long, a woman who became legend. It's 1819. The United States has just purchased Louisiana, but Texas still belongs to Spain. Adventurers, smugglers, and dreamers look west with hungry eyes. Among them was James Long, a former U.S. Army surgeon, and restless soldier of fortune. Long believed Texas was ripe for the taking, and that America's destiny was to claim it. He wasn't alone. After the War of 1812, many veterans felt cheated of glory and land. Long gathered a ragtag band of about 300 men in Natchez, Mississippi, farmers, traders, and mercenaries, and declared himself commander of what would become known as the Long Expedition. In 1819, Long's force marched into Texas, seizing Nacogdoches almost without a fight. There, under the shadow of oak trees, they raised a flag, declaring Texas a free and independent republic. But Long's so-called Republic of Texas had shaky foundations. Supplies were short. His men squabbled. Spain was not about to give up its northern frontier. Within months, Spanish troops closed in. Outnumbered and outgunned, Long's forces scattered. He barely escaped with his life. But James Long wasn't finished. In 1820, Long tried again, this time setting up headquarters at Bolivar Point near Galveston. The coastline was wild, windswept, and crawling with smugglers and pirates, including remnants of Jean Lafitte's buccaneers. Jane Long, James' young wife, joined him here, along with their small daughter. She became one of the few Anglo women in Texas at the time. While James plotted alliances with filibusters and Mexican rebels, Jane tried to carve out a home from the salt marshes. But again, Spanish forces crushed the rebellion. James Long was captured and sent to Mexico City, where he was eventually assassinated in 1822. That could have been the end of the story. But Jane Long was about to enter legend. It was the winter of 1821, one of the coldest Texas had seen. Jane Long was left at Bolivar Point with only a few servants, her young daughter, and another child on the way. Supplies were almost gone. The men who had promised to return never did. By December, Jane was alone, a young woman with 2 children on a desolate peninsula, the Gulf winds howling around her. But Jane refused to give in. She loaded a cannon that had been left behind and fired it occasionally to scare off potential raiders. She gathered oysters and fished the bay. She gave birth to her child in that frozen outpost, wrapping the baby in rags to keep her alive. That child, Mary James Long, is often remembered as the first Anglo-American born in Texas. Because of her courage, Texans later called Jane Long the Mother of Texas. Jane Long eventually left Bolivar Point, settling in Richmond, Texas. She lived to see the Texas Revolution, and though she wasn't part of the battles, she became a symbol of perseverance, the woman who held on when everyone else fled. The Long Expedition itself failed. James Long's dream of a free Texas ended in blood and betrayal. But his story, and especially Jane's, kept alive the idea that Texas could and should be independent. The Long Expedition is often overshadowed by the Alamo and San Jacinto. But in 1819, before Houston, Bowie, or Crockett ever set foot in Texas, a man named James Long declared a republic. And a woman named Jane Long gave it meaning through her survival. So here's the question. Why do we remember the heroes of 1836, but forget the woman who fired a cannon at Galveston and gave birth to Texas's first Anglo child in the dead of winter? Maybe the answer is that legends aren't always made on battlefields. Sometimes they're made by holding on, one frozen night at a time.